Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mom at Home. So excited to have you here today, and we are welcoming a very, very wonderful. Oh, I hear myself. Where am I coming from? Where am I coming from? That's my phone. I just told our guests today, don't watch the stream on your devices because it will cause echo. And lo and behold, I did that. So I apologize. Let me catch up again with our guest today. We have Miranda Altman of Little Kids Rock, as well as Cosby Shalacombe, Director of Membership here at NAMM. Miranda Altman, we're going to be exploring her career with Little Kids Rock. They are a fellow nonprofit, a 501c3 organization. They're here in the U.S. with the mission of transforming lives by restoring, expanding, and innovating music education in our schools. Thousands of Little Kid Rock's teachers are across 48 different states. They lead a national movement to bring innovative and inclusive music education to students. The organization provides instruments, teacher training, curriculum, and other resources to help teachers build the music programs that are as diverse as the kids they serve. The method's rooted in. So I would like to turn over the conversation and welcome both of our guests here today to explore Miranda's career, the impact that she's had on students' lives, and also the work she is doing with a newly branded organization, Women of NAMM, who I'm going to let them talk about it because there's such a wonderful stories there. Hello, Miranda and Cosby. Welcome to Mom at Home.
Hi,
So glad to
BJ.
have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. I want to turn it over to you right away so we can get this conversation underway. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Sounds
All right.
great.
Here we go.
Hi, Miranda.
Hi,
And
Cosby.
it's a pleasure chatting with you today. You and I have been able to work quite a bit together with Swim, which is now W.O.N. But what we want to talk about today is we want to talk about that. But I also want to tell us about your path in life has taken you and how you wound up working in this music world.
Well, I never imagined that this is what I'd be doing today. I graduated with a degree in geography. Not many people know that. Now my secret's out. Somehow I found myself working in finance on Wall Street for a year or two after graduation. I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I wanted the opposite. So I was actually on Craigslist. This was way back in 2009 when it was a standard thing for companies to post jobs there. And I saw this ad for a little organization called Little Kids Rock. I decided, well, that sounds opposite enough. And was actually hired because they needed someone with data experience. But I came into this 4-person organization that was trying to do some very big things. And what they really needed was someone to do a little bit of everything. So I rolled up my sleeves, jumped in. Here I am.
Well, I definitely can relate to the stumble into the industry. I stumbled into the nonprofit industry not by Craigslist, but I answered a blind ad out of the newspaper, and it was for an actual local nonprofit. So that's how I stumbled in the nonprofit industry. So we have a stumbling alike.
We
So you
dated
didn't,
ourselves a little bit. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So you didn't have a music background. How did you adapt or prepare for this new role that you found yourself in?
So not I've always been a huge music lover and consumer, but growing up, I never really had the opportunity to learn to play in a way that engaged me. But I realized quick to be impactful in this new role that I found myself in, I had to learn how to connect with both our music educator network and product industry partners, despite not having a background in the field. So walk the walk, talk the talk. I started taking guitar lessons immediately. And in the decade since, I cannot imagine my life not being a player. I always pushed myself to take lessons, jump in on performances and teaching opportunities that were just way outside my comfort zone. And it's brought me so much joy and opportunities for connection with others. So I feel profoundly grateful.
Well, now that you're a guitar player, and we know that for a fact because we can see those fabulous guitars behind you there on the wall, what do you play? What is your favorite song to play?
Um, so my favorite song to play and listen to is "Ripple" by the Grateful Dead. It's always been my favorite. It's written by a lyricist named Robert Hunter. For all the Deadheads out there, they know he wrote a lot of their songs. And my connection to that song has only expanded with my work. At Little Kids Rock, we have an annual songwriting exhibition every year where students submit their own compositions from all over the country. And this must have been maybe 2012, it was a long time ago. We had a submission from a student of Bill Singer. He's an amazing educator in Santa Rosa, California. And it was a third grade girl with a beautiful song. And she won an award from us. And Bill called me up after this and was like, do you know that she's Robert Hunter's granddaughter? And when he discovered that she had been recognized, he took her into the recording studio and they got to have this moment together. And it really moved me at the time. But then fast forward to 2017, which for me was one of the hardest years of my life with personal challenges. And it's a song that I leaned on during that time. And in 2017, I found myself that summer at our Modern Band Summit, which is our annual educators conference. And I was handing out the award for Educator of the Year to Bill Singer, her teacher. And in that moment, I just realized that music has this way of bringing everything full circle in our lives.
Absolutely. It brings it completely full circle. And I love that story. And I'm so glad that for all the deadheads out there, I'm sure that they love that story as well. It sounds like to me that you have had a lot of mentors and influential people in your life to kind of help you get to where you are today. Talk about that a little bit. Who are your mentors?
So I actually consider one of my biggest influences on my journey as a player and the risk I've taken in my career to my colleague and now close friend, Dr. Scott Burstein, who is our director of teaching and learning. And they always say, oh, Miranda runs the logistics at Little Kids Rock, Scott runs the content. And he's a masterful musician, advanced degrees in classical guitar, but he's always so encouraging of myself and others to just jump right in and do the thing, no matter what your ability is. And I've taken on a lot of professional projects that I wouldn't have otherwise, because I always felt like, oh, I'm not one of the musicians on the team, but he's always encouraged me to go for it. And to me, that's what being a true ally is about, creating that space for being inclusive. And he's not only done that with me, I've witnessed him provide that for many others, teachers, students. You know, everyone always has a spot in the jam session when Scott's there.
I love that. It always has a spot in the jam session when Scott is there. And it really is finding that safe space and that comfortable space. And if you're a mentor or, you're helping someone, whether you're in your organization or another organization, that mentorship is so important and it goes such a long way. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about our mentorship program at NAMM is just really getting through and connecting people. And I love when you make that connection and you connect people in the mentorship realm. It is, I mean, the sky's the limit on it. It really is. That's really the passion that we see, especially in our industry. We see that passion. And I see that passion with Little Kids Rock. And I love this organization. I think it's an incredible organization, but I want everybody listening to know even more about it. Tell us about Little Kids Rock.
So Little Kids Rock, we partner with school districts around the country to provide what's called modern band programming. And modern band is whatever is culturally relevant to the child. So that could be pop, could be Latin, hip hop, rap, mariachi, depending on where you are in the country. So we work with these districts and we connect their educators directly to instruments, professional development, curriculum, and most important is we try to provide a community of support to them so they can build these successful modern band programs.
How do you see Little Kids Rock being different from other programs that are in the school music space?
How do I see it being different? So music education in this country has always been focused around traditional Western European music. And with that, there's really two barriers for access. The first is if a student's not in a school district with funding to offer consistent programming for the arts, or if they do, the access point to that program's high, such as having to rent an expensive instrument for the school year. But really, the second bigger barrier is even if there's programming being offered, it's often not culturally responsive to the student. So the top 5 genres that Americans consume right now, if you're looking at digital music sales, are rap, rock, pop, R&B, and Latin. That's 5, right? Yeah, and that's over 70% of the market. And all these genres have roots in Black and Brown communities. But if you look at what's being taught in schools, it's overwhelmingly classical, it's jazz, folk, world, and children's musics, which are all beautiful genres. But when you look at digital music sales, they combine for less than 2%. So there's just a little bit of a disconnect there.
So your guys are trying to actually bridge that gap. And that's where you're trying to come in. And do you consider that some of the most important work that you do at Little Kids Rock?
Absolutely. If what's being taught in the classroom is not what the kids are listening to at home, sharing with their friends, they're less inclined to be engaged and pursue an opportunity to learn an instrument. Our intentions is not to replace traditional programs, which all have a vital place in the ecosystem, but rather, modern band is meant to serve as an alternative stream to all the other offerings out there. So we actually find that it doesn't take away from the orchestra programming or jazz band, but rather it's the opposite. Our teachers report higher enrollment across all music programs once modern band is introduced, which is a wonderful thing. What is that? All tides raise boats, something like that.
Absolutely. I think that is right there. That is the most important work that is being done across the industry altogether. Now, you've had a very exciting, I would say, career path since starting with Little Kids Rock, and you've had a lot of growth opportunities. Tell me about that.
So when I started back in 2009, 13 years ago, I can't believe it. We were serving about 30,000 students. I used to know every single teacher by name. Now we're working with over 2,500 educators, over 500,000 kids, and we've changed a lot. We're not just about little kids. We're putting more focus now on higher ed initiatives, training the educators of tomorrow. We're not just about rock. As for me, I think my job now is a lot less hands-on. I do miss working directly with teachers, but I have a really great team that's just killing it. And so now I spend a lot of my efforts managing our budget, setting strategy, working with our partners.
So let's go back in time for just a bit, and let's imagine it's 12 years ago, and it's your first day on the job at Little Kids Rock. What advice would you give yourself?
Well, I can throw another Grateful Dead reference in here about a long, strange trip, but I'll spare everybody. So I think it's really important to find the things that sustain your energy and passion, especially when you're at the same company for 12 years, which is unusual now especially for us millennials. For me, to engage with that personal mission, I really had to step outside my comfort zone. I had a pivotal moment maybe 6 years ago at the Modern Band Summit. And the summit is it's my baby, my passion project, but I'm all logistics. I have some great partners on the content end, but I'm behind the scenes. So Scott Burstein, who I mentioned earlier, approached me and said, why don't you present a breakout session? You can teach beginning lead guitar, show everyone how to take a solo. And my first instinct was, no, I'm way too busy for that. And then my second instinct was like, no, I'm not good enough for that. I don't belong there. But long story short, I ended up doing it and agreeing to do it. And we get to the workshop, and it's a room full of educators, music teachers with years of formal training. I've never really been a public speaker. I was pregnant at the time. it was really awkward to fit my Telecaster, the one you see back there, over my big belly. But I made it through the presentation. But I was sure that I had blown it and that people could see that I wasn't a real musician. And but at the end of the session, several women came up to me, probably in their mid 60s, and they said it was the best session that they've ever attended so far at the conference. And one was crying and said she never ever thought she could take a solo on the guitar, but now they could jam with the boys. And it was in that moment that I realized my value is not to be the most experienced or even the most confident in the room. It's showing others something in a way that's accessible, meeting people where they're at. And you can apply that beyond playing guitar really to anything in the business world. And that's something I wish I known earlier, but I certainly know now, and I lean into it every day.
That's such a strong lesson, Miranda. It's don't be afraid to say yes. Don't be afraid to say yes. Don't get in, that, oh, you're not going to be good enough, because you never know who is really needs to be inspired for what you can offer. And I really love that story. And I love the fact that those women came up to you and not only, gave you the confidence in that, but they gave you that feedback. Because oftentimes, I'll see something, or, people will see something and they'll think to themselves, oh, wow, that was so incredible. That was really good. But they never take the time to really, give that feedback. And that's so important. I mean, it's just,
So important.
as humans, you love, of course everybody loves some positive feedback, but also in the case that there is some negative feedback, you can also take that and learn from it, because we all have a lot of learning to do, and we try to learn, something every day. So that's one of that story that you have said has been such a major inspiration, and I really hope that everybody listening today really takes that to heart. And if you're out there and you hear, hear something good, or you hear something that, has really inspired you, tell that person. Say, that really inspired me. And you never know what that will do. And play it forward is what I always like to say. Pay it forward.
Absolutely.
So a few years ago, there was some female NAMM member veterans that got together. They formed a group called SWIM, which stands for Smart Women in Music. And BJ alluded to it a little bit at the beginning. They really saw a need for women in this industry to have a place to network, learn from each other. NAMM has recently taken over the management of this group, and we do have a new name for it, which will be Women of NAMM, or W.O.N. You've been heavily involved with SWIM. Tell me why you see this as such a needed organization for women in this industry.
So it's a cause that I'm incredibly passionate about. And um, going back and time traveling again, in the sixth grade, at the end of our school year, I had a teacher that said every kid in the class was going to get an award. So growing up, I never really excelled in anything. C+ student, pick last in gym class, all that. I'm sure there's people in the audience that can relate to being the last picked in gym class. So I was really excited to experience what recognition felt like. And so they're doing the awards, and it comes to be my turn, and the award I received was for most shy. And even at 11 years old, I was like, wait a minute, my greatest attribute is not having a voice. And it was crushing at the time. And actually, I completely repressed that until that day when I found myself 6 months pregnant, running a lead guitar workshop and making a difference. So it lit a fire in me. I've done that workshop every year ever since. I try to put myself out there whenever the opportunity presents. I say yes. And I do it because representation is so important. And the SWIM initiative fosters that in so many ways.
It absolutely does. I just see what it has done for the organization, what it has done for the young women that have just finished up college. I see what it's done for the women that are maybe in mid career and even in late career. There's really something for everyone in all aspects of the group. And I loved your sixth grade story. And when you and I were talking earlier this week, I was thinking sixth grade, to that is such a pivotal time in your life. You're preteening, you're going into your teenage years. It's an awkward stage for us, especially for us girls. And the fact that that was that moment was brought out through your connection and through going through and understanding that, and you're like, wow, that has made me really want to be able to give back and to really get involved in this organization. So tell me, how did you get involved in swim? I know you've been heavily involved, but tell me what really got you to start what you're doing with Women of NAMM.
Yeah, well, just about going back to what you're saying about not having a voice, that swim, I think, helps ensure that women will not feel like they never not have a voice. And then in this space, it's the music product industry, but it's so important across all industries. So I first got involved in swim after their International Women's Day virtual event last March. There was a part of the program where we were separated into smaller groups. And I found that just a simple, intimate 15-minute conversation with other women in the industry really helped reset my focus around some challenges at work that we all have. So we reached out to Natalie Morrison with the Dario, who's also a former Little Kids Rock intern, and asked her how to become more involved. She hooked me up with Crystal Morris, who is the CEO of Gator Cases, and we came up with the idea of Deep Dive. And Deep Dive is a bi-monthly virtual series where women in the industry gather together in small groups in a safe, inclusive forum where we can share our experiences.
I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Deep Dive, and you have done such a wonderful, wonderful work with that. And the last Deep Dive that we had was just a couple of weeks ago, and I got to sit in a room with three other women. We did it virtual, we did it on Zoom, and just to hear, their struggles or their questions, and we just really just got to exchange information. And it was that kind of conversation that I know I feel comfortable reaching out to them for life and just understanding, where we're going with it. That's the kind of deep level conversations that we're having. And I know that you also got involved with the summit. Touch a little bit about what the summit meant to you.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to attend SWAM's 2-day leadership symposium at NAMM headquarters this past October. And now we have a cohort of about 18 of us women, very diverse mix, different parts of the industry. And it's been about 3.5 months, and we're helping each other find new opportunities, mentoring one another on personal challenges. And it's become this incredible tight-knit group. And I'm just tremendously grateful for SWIM and the important work that they're doing to diversify what leadership in the industry looks like.
And one of the things also I really like about this group is they are producing scholarships for young women or women in their beginning to their mid career to come to the NAMM show and really get to see the NAMM show and get a greater understanding and meet other women in the industry. And so I think all around it's such an important work. And I really thank you for everything that you've done with the deep dive. So we have a question from the audience. And before I move on to our next session, let's see. This is from Catherine Smart. She's asking, how do you bridge classical to rock? How do you work with educators to accomplish this? For example, bringing learning about string bass to electric bass guitar. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it starts with finding that repertoire that speaks to the student. So whether it's a classical piece or a pop piece, let your students have autonomy to pick out what they're going to be diving into. And I think a lot of the concepts on electric bass are transferable to string bass and back and forth. And it's all about taking little steps. You don't have to jump in and turn your orchestra into a rock band overnight. That's absolutely not what we would ever suggest. But there's little ways to incorporate what the students are listening to and what's inspiring them into your everyday classroom.
I think that is right on. I remember, being in middle school band, and we had such a creative band teacher. She was just so amazing. And she came in at the beginning of the year and she said, okay, she took the pulse of the class and she said, okay, what kind of music do you guys like? What kind of music do you like to listen to? And she had us come in for like the first week and we just played our favorite music, just what it is that we liked. And she said, and she took all of that and she said, and then she set the trajectory of what we would learn that year and what we would play. And we felt like we were really a part of it. And it wasn't just, you have to play this. This is what I've been teaching, for 20 years and you have to do it this way. And I loved that. And everybody in the room loved it. And we really felt, even though we were, young, we felt that we had a place and that our teacher really wanted to see us succeed. So I definitely can see where that's coming in.
And not to do a shameless plug, but at the Modern Band Summit every summer, we have a lot of different breakout sessions that focus on some of those nuances, how to incorporate modern band concepts into your traditional orchestra. And they're run by educators that are doing this every day. So this year's Modern Band Summit is actually going to be July 13th through 15th, and anyone can sign up and register, and it's on littlekidsrock.org, the info.
And where is that located?
Fort Collins, Colorado.
Fort Collins, Colorado. Okay.
Not a bad place to be in the summer.
Absolutely not. It's beautiful. I love Colorado in the summer. So at NAMM, we represent the ecosystem of making, selling, and using musical instruments and products. So at our NAMM Museum, we celebrate this ecosystem through exhibits and showcasing the manufacturers, the retailers, and the musicians. In your own life and work, how does this industry and its ecosystem bring meaning to you and your world?
That's a great question. So one of the parts of my job that I really have enjoyed over the past decade, the product industry, and helping connect educators with the product they need to offer that culturally relevant music programming. Through that, we've been able to place over 100,000 instruments into schools over the past decade, and it's all because of those partnerships. For the past 3 years or so, we've been partnered with Sweetwater, which is an incredible company to work with. And we've been able to exponentially grow our impact in getting those instruments into the hands of students. And those students, they're the music makers of the future, and they're more diverse than ever before. So that's what's really exciting.
And for those
to me
that
about
don't
the
know,
ecosystem.
Sweetwater is a retailer in this industry, and they are an online retailer, and they also have a store in Indiana. BJ, you know a little bit about Sweetwater. You know a little bit about Indiana, don't you?
Just a little bit. Actually, my kid brother used to be in the sales pit there for a little while, and he's transitioned away from Sweetwater. We had the good fortune of interviewing Chuck Sirac here on the MoMM at Home with special guest interviewer Joe Lamond. And then to throw back what you've already said, especially about the Swim 1 program, we actually were able to interview Crystal Morris as well. And we are looking forward to our upcoming interview with Robin Sassy and Kimberly Deverell from the San Diego Music Studio. So we're getting all kinds of wonderful feedback and input about this wonderful program, supporting our industry, supporting the women leadership and women contributions, and elevating that, and elevating, like you said, when the tide rises, it brings everybody up together. So that's definitely a sentiment we love to hear every time we have guests like you on the program.
You said the tide rising piece a little better than I did.
Well, it triggered in my head. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you mean. I know what that
Yeah.
is. So sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. One question I had, is it okay for me to ask one?
Oh yeah,
Totally.
absolutely.
I'm keeping track of my notes and my timeline here, but you've had a really just rich career, and especially with your transition into this hands-off role. I understand that is a significant change in your involvement with Little Kids Rock. How do you keep fresh? How do you keep your learning, your passion, your inspiration? How do you keep those items, that personal drive fresh for you?
I always try to say yes to any opportunity that comes along. I know burnout is a very real thing, but I find that also saying yes is and balancing that has really kept things exciting. And not being afraid to pivot. April of 2020, so almost 2 years ago, I was supposed to go on this big trip to Portugal that I've been planning for a long time with all my closest friends, and obviously it was canceled. But on the day that we were supposed to leave on the trip, one of my colleagues and I, we found a music business program, MBA program, that started that same day, and we applied, and now we're graduating with our MBAs in a month. And so it's always looking out, like when something is disappointing, it's like what's next? What else can I do? How else can I learn?
Yeah, wonderful. That's amazing. Well,
That
kudos.
is, I mean, yeah, and congratulations on the MBA. That is not it's not an easy task at all. And so to juggle everything that you've been telling us about and to get an MBA, I think it's, talking about your question, BJ, I really think you've got to put yourself in a room to if your cup is feeling depleted, you got to get yourself into a room with people and with conversations that inspire you, whether you are watching, the Mom at Home latest podcast, or you're watching the latest YouTube video, or you just got to get out there and find something that inspires you and helps you fill up your cup.
Hmm.
I
Good
just think that
advice.
that is, yeah, I just think that's how we can move forward, especially, in this pandemic life that we've had for the over the last couple of years. I mean, there's a lot of negativity out there,
Yeah.
and there is everywhere you turn. You could be very, very negative, but
Mm-hmm.
if you take that opportunity and just find something that inspires you. I mean, I know BJ, I know you're a drummer, and I know you could get on there and you can drum and you can inspire, but it is just all about what it is that inspires you. For me, I mean, my little nephew, he's 2.5, and he's learning words, and he's learning like new things left and right. He's really intrigued by instruments. He's really intrigued by music and guitar and the piano, and it's just crazy how interested he is in everything. And so just getting in the room with him, I think is inspiration, just to that we're all still learning, and we're all still in this together, and everybody is having good days and bad days.
I
But
agree. It's easy to fall into that negativity trap sometimes, and then I mean, it's wonderful to find those opportunities in your space that you're working with, to surround yourself with the people that reinforce that positivity, that reinforce what you're doing, and reinforce that passion. And I think we're lucky, Cosby and Miranda, that we have an industry that we work in where it's easy to really fall in and to be passionate about it, and to see the effects that we have on the lives of students, on the lives of adults, and seniors, and just the impact we're making. So that's wonderful advice. I never really considered it that way before.
I
and
heard a
it's
quote.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Husby.
Go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
A few months back, I heard someone say that you only get old when you stop learning, and I just think that is so true, because I think we all know people that are 80 years old that are more vivacious and full of life than some people in their 20s. So that just resonates with me so much. Always be learning.
Always learn. You're never too old to learn something. And speaking of learning, Let's look towards the future, Miranda. And I would like to get just how you would like to see, what do you see music education moving forward?
So I see this continued path toward equity. So many kids have been left behind during COVID in so many ways that the arts are more important than ever before. Um, the pandemic certainly has brought so many challenges for education, but the ESSER Act, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, um, has potentially provided some districts with more funding to invest in the arts. So people are starting to pay attention. When kids were inside for, I was going to say a year, but it's been 2 years, masked on computer screens, I think it's a wake up call. Everyone's starting to realize how important so much of this is the social, emotional learning skills, and the arts are a huge part of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, no one is a bigger champion of arts and music education than NAMM and the NAMM Foundation. And so that is, and you said it perfectly. And I know, BJ, you see it as well, that through the museum. And just since we've been able to open the museum back up, I mean, seeing those school tours and seeing those kids get to come back in and really, you know, spend time in the museum and really immerse themselves into learning about the
Yeah,
arts.
I absolutely agree with what Miranda said. I mean, again, going back to what she said earlier, there's a connection, and music is like the ultimate connector, and it's what we've gone through the past 2 years is realizing that people desire that connectivity, and we don't have firsthand, we don't have at the museum, we don't have as firsthand of a perspective as Little Kids Rock do for the music education side of it, what's happening in the schools, but we do realize, or I think we're at a higher state of understanding now what that connection means to people, and what it means for our organizations, Little Kids Rock and the museum, and making music to help provide that connectivity, and NAMM and the NAMM Foundation at a global level too. So it's totally agree, absolutely.
So
That
it's just
is,
really exciting to think about how we can build off that momentum
Mm-hmm.
next year or two.
and I like what you said, BJ, about the global. I mean, just that is one of the such a cool thing about music and such a cool thing about being in this industry is we have the ability to connect globally, and music connects all of us. And there's nobody ever out there that says, I hate music. I hate listening to music. I hate hearing music. I don't want anything to do with music. And that really is rare. I mean, think about anything out there that doesn't have that kind of inspiration and that kind of connection. So we are in a great industry. So women in the music world moving forward, how do you see that, Miranda?
So I just think it's so critically important to empower girls and women to do the things, play the instruments that traditionally have been very male dominated, drums, guitar. Um, there's been times where I've performed, and before, someone has asked me, well meaning, but oh, you're the vocalist, which is extremely flattering. I'd love to be able to be a good singer, but when I say, oh no, I'm a guitarist, they look so surprised. And um, that's shifting now. And modern band programming in schools provides girls with that opportunity, and I think we can see it in measurable ways. I read something recently that decades ago, only 5% of consumers purchasing guitars were female, but today it's 50%.
That is awesome.
50%. Yeah, and the 5% was maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago, not that long ago, not in ancient times. So I think now it's just we got to make sure that those girls, that 50%, they're as visible. And I think we're on the right track right now with initiatives like Swim.
Mm-hmm.
That is, we have definitely moved the needle on that. We still have a lot of work to do, so we can't let up off the gas on that. But just to hear that stat, I mean, 5%, and just to hear that stat that 50% out there are now saying, you know what? that guitar is for me. I can play the guitar. You've told us about it, Miranda. You've showed us that how it's been so inspirational for you in your career and when you were learning to play guitar. I know you just told us you're getting your MBA in music business, and you've mapped your way into this industry through your BA in geography, and you spent some time in the finance industry, and so now it sounds like you're making a commitment with your MBA in the music business. It sounds like you're making a commitment to this industry. Tell us about what's next for you. What are you doing moving forward?
So I want to continue developing that cohesive ecosystem between education and product. I want to help build more, we call this triple bottom line partnerships. Helps Little Kids Rock, helps the manufacturer or our retailers, helps their bottom line, but also it impacts the greater social good. Like what we have with Sweetwater right now. And I want to be able to do more of that, because I think, like I said before, I think the music makers, the music consumers of tomorrow is just such an untapped potential.
It absolutely is untapped potential. And those stats that you've quoted have been incredible, but we have a lot of opportunity here. And I'm super excited to have organizations like NAMM and the Museum of Making Music and Little Kids Rock really moving it forward, not only for everybody that wants to pick up an instrument and play music, for the women that thought they couldn't, but they can, and for the women to say yes to that. So I have to ask you, favorite performance?
That's so hard. You save the hard balls for the end. During my time at Little Kids Rock, I've had the privilege of helping coordinate students perform with artists. And seeing those performances come to life have been truly some of the things that have resonated with me the most. We've had kids perform with Joan Jett, Warren Haynes, Wiz Khalifa, Pharrell Williams, just artists from across the spectrum. And just seeing the magic that can happen there, it's often impromptu. You can't beat it.
You absolutely. There is, when I took the job at NAMM, I've been at NAMM now for 10 years. And when I went to like my first or second NAMM show, and, I was just starting really to meet people and to meet, the famous musicians, and especially the friends of NAMM. And I remember the bass player, Nathan East, coming in to the area where I was at. And he said, "Hey, I'm late for a meeting. Would you mind holding my hoverboard?" And I said, "Absolutely. I can do that." And I looked over to my colleague and I said, "Nathan East just asked me to hold his hoverboard." So I got up the nerve when he came to retrieve it, and I said, "I've never ridden one of those before." And
No.
he said, "You haven't?" He said, "We must get you on it." And I was like, no, 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 no. So here we are at the NAMM show. Nathan East is holding my hand, and I am on his hoverboard. It was the scariest thing I had ever been on before, and I've never been on it again. But it's just those kind of wow moments that really shape your career and really shape this industry. And this industry is full of those kind of wow moments. So I know that was a hard question to figure out your favorite performance, but I know that there's been so many. But
it's
I
like
think
that. I don't know if you're a Talking Heads fan, but that song "Once in a Lifetime," where it's that line's like, "How did I get here?"
Yeah.
And you just sometimes you just look around you, you're like, "What?" And that's a beautiful thing.
It absolutely is. BJ, I want to put you on the spot. What's your favorite performance?
My favorite performance? Oh, let's see. I'm trying to think of all the performances I've ever experienced. most recent NAMM performance was when the Animals as Leaders performed at a very split second. That was quite
Oh
amazing.
yeah, that
Um,
was.
I would say my most favorite performance at the Museum of Making Music was Colin Hay. Actually, we had he and
Mhm.
his wife perform at the museum. It was a very intimate audience, really close together, and he was just the most casual person, excellent artist, nice to engage with, and so that kind of set the stage for realizing that you have kind of this partnership with not only these high profile artists but the people who are willing to give back and perpetuate the cycle of good that is, you know, our family in the music products industry. You have the heroes who are these high profile artists like Bernie Williams, like Nathan East, like all of these great
Mhm.
people who give back and who are passionate about education or passionate about their performance and passionate about the connectivity within the industry. Then you have the people who are like Chuck Sirac. Like again, I'm gonna go
Mhm.
back to, you know, the David Wish too. Okay, I mean, he's been around for a
Oh
while
yeah.
too, and he was a force to be reckoned with when he was first starting Little Kids Rock, and it was just you saw the passion and you see the passion in the company that he's created too, and then that passion goes and creates more opportunities through swim, through one, and through other future students. I mean, how do you have any? I'm curious, Miranda. Do you have any stories of the students that you guys have mentored and provided music to? Do you have any experiences where they've gone on to become a part of the education ecosystem, like becoming mentors themselves?
We actually have two former Little Kids Rock students that I worked with 12 years ago in the classroom on our staff at Little Kids Rock right now,
Wow.
So
which is just so cool.
that's
Yeah.
one person, you turning two people, two more yous out there, hopefully creating four more yous out there with the passion and the drive of this industry, and that's what's the most exciting. That's why I take it back to that favorite performance. It's like, man, this is just one big, really cool family ecosystem that just kind of
Oh yeah.
creates good. You know, we have the opportunity to create so much good out there, and that has always stuck with me.
It's snowballing in all the best ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to see. And we have students too that have gone on to prestigious music schools and are performing, and they're getting their stuff out there, and it's, you know, they're adults now in the world, and they're making things happen creatively, and it's amazing. It's cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Do you have? I'm sorry, I'm going off the rails. I know we have this wonderful program. Thank you to our own executive director, Carolyn Grant at the Museum of Making Music. She helped put together our program today and helped us keep us on course. But sometimes I like to stray off course just because I'm a little
I
wild
love
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Um, for let's say for like parents, guardians, independent students who are out there, what can they do to incorporate music into their lives if they're not already part of like a program like Little Kids Rock, or if they're not familiar with the NAMM ecosystem or the Museum of Making Music ecosystem? What would you do to encourage them to find ways to connect to music?
Listen to what their kids are listening to. I have a 4-year old and a 7-year old, and we've been My Little Pony soundtrack has been on blast in my house for the past, I mean, it's felt like 20 years, but but it's like, you know, meet them where they're at. And, you know, as sometimes, would I rather them jam to the Grateful Dead with me? Sure, but it's their journey, not mine. And you're just there for the ride and to support it and
Mm,
foster it any way you can.
I love
absolutely.
that. It's not,
Great.
it's their journey, and whatever they show an interest in, if, you know, they show an interest in drums and you're like, oh my goodness, I would never want drums in my house. I don't want to hear you beating on drums.
Oh, that hurts.
Don't discourage it. I know exactly. But BJ, I wanted to play the drums and my mom said, no, you get to play the clarinet. Okay, I am not a clarinet girl. I'm a drums girl. So I thought that was just encourage it. You know, if you have someone out there showing interest, you know, a child or, you know, someone out there showing interest, let them define their journey
Hmm.
on that.
And one other thing I think is also really important is to be encouraging on mistakes. Like one of the things, our pedagogy at Little Kids Rock is centered around music as a second language. So when kids are learning to speak, you're never when your child says "mom" for the first time, you don't stop and correct them and say, "Well, actually, it's mother," and can you spell it out first? And so that's the philosophy that we have with music. Like if the theory and the proficiency will come, but just get them playing, just get them making noise, get them engaged, and because that's how we learn to communicate as humans. So music is no different than the spoken language in that regard.
That reminds me also too that really echoes a TED Talk I saw with Victor Wooten, how he talks about music as language, and it is absolute. I mean, yes, we learn through being around it, for being present, and it's a way to communicate. And I that definitely echoes what I've heard, and I'm glad to hear that Little Kids Rock is also echoing that same experience. It's wonderful.
And Victor has been a tremendous supporter of our organization. He's been the keynote speaker at the Modern Band Summit, and we're totally aligned with that. Another
one of those good people in our ecosystem who's helping us move that ball forward. Yeah, wonderful.
Absolutely. We couldn't move forward without those kind of people like a Victor Wooten. You know, BJ, I mean, I just want to thank Miranda. I mean, I loved hearing your story, and I loved hearing how Little Kids Rock is making such an impact, how you've been making such an impact for not only for women in the industry, but you have been on a self journey. I mean, you really are. You have discovered a lot of things about yourself along the way, and I'm so happy that you took a turn and on the map and you went into this industry, because I think it fits. I think it's you, and I think it's the industry that you didn't know you needed, but you have, and it's embraced you with a warm hug. And congratulations to you for that.
Well, I appreciate the industry for embracing us with open arms. So thank you, and it was such a wonderful opportunity to be able to share a little with you both today and our audience listening in.
Awesome. And before I'm gonna wrap up the show, but before I wrap up, where can people go to learn more about Little Kids Rock, as well as the swim/W.O.N movement?
So littlekidsrock.org has information. We have free resources. So I know we've had questions on how to get the kids involved. If there's not a program in your district, we have curriculum online. We have all kinds of videos. We have a YouTube channel. You can find information about the Modern Band Summit coming up on the website. And for swim, there is a swim. I believe on the NAMM website they have a link to the swim information. I think there's some scholarship opportunities posted for the NAMM show that they recently posted. So I encourage young women of any ages to take a look at those. It's a great opportunity.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. We have information on swim on NAMM.org and then on the NAMM Foundation website as well.
Excellent. Is it okay if I take us out?
You take us out, BJ.
All right. All right. I do want to thank you, Cosby, and thank you, Miranda, for being our guest today. Wonderful conversation. Thank you to our guests. I want to take a quick look and see what's on the horizon for us coming up at the Museum of Making Music. As I mentioned earlier, we've got some more virtual programs, but we also have some in-person programs. Next week, we have Saturday, February 19th at 7 p.m. at the Museum of Making Music. We have a program called Two Pianos, Four Hands. That is part of our San Diego Sound Project, sponsored by the Conrad Prebys Foundation. It will feature Dr. Ching-Ming Chang and Dr. Janet Kao, two local educators, and here at the California State University San Marcos is where they have their residency as well. I apologize to Dr. Janet because I forgot where she actually teaches, but please visit our website. You can learn about where this program, we're actually going to have two Steinway pianos on our stage at the Museum of Making Music, and Dr. Ching-Ming and Dr. Janet will be there to perform. Wonderful repertoire from classical music to popular music to music inspired by Disney, which I know is a fan favorite here in my household. So we're very excited about that program. We will actually be talking with Dr. Ching-Ming Chang next Tuesday on our show notes program, similar to Mom at Home, but specifically talking about the upcoming live performance at the Museum of Making Music. The following weekend, on Saturday, February 26th at 7 p.m., we are actually welcoming back David Castaneda. He was a guest here on Mom at Home talking about the influence of Latin percussion. He'll be performing at the Museum of Making Music as part of the San Diego Sound Project, again, sponsored by the Conrad Prebys Foundation. He is bringing an entire band with him, and he'll be exploring music that has influenced him and that he has rapped and done his own compositions to. David is a music academic. He is a performer, arranger, and educator, and he has actually participated in the Museum of Making Music's virtual tour program with some STEAM content that he helped videotape and record for us. He'll be performing again Saturday, February 26th at the Museum of Making Music. And then finally, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, our next Mom at Home series will feature our very own local music shop here in San Diego County, the San Diego Music Studio, just down the street from the museum in San Marcos. We'll be talking with store owner Robin Sassy and Kimberly Deverell. Actually, they are also invested in the Women of NAMM program and have just made a huge impact in our community as a local retailer. They're an award-winning retailer, too. I think they're one of the top 100 NAMM dealers in the United States. So very excited to have them here, and I'll let them talk about all the numerous awards they've had. We're so excited to have them on the program. Other than that, thank you for joining us again today, everyone. Wonderful questions, wonderful participation. I know we had a question earlier from Becky Spiewak about the Women of NAMM program, but we worked that right into the conversation, so we didn't want to double up on the questions, which we had already answered. And then, Catherine, thank you so much for the questions as well. We hope to see you back next time on another episode of Mom at Home. Until then, take care, everyone.